What's up everybody, Kiergomes here, and welcome back. I am really excited for today's episode because it's going to be a good old-fashioned Kiergomes top 5. If you've been subscribed to my channel for a while, you definitely have seen me do these before. I like to take brands that are popular in the playing card community and just kind of put a mashup of my top 5 favorite decks together and then make a video about it for you guys. You guys seem to really enjoy those videos too. They always get good views, good likes, and good engagement from you, good comments, all that fun stuff, and I think it does open up a lot of good conversation for us to talk about what we love, which is playing cards. So in today's episode, I'm going to be going over my top 5 favorite decks by the King's Wild Project. King's Wild Project has a lot of decks of cards and so many good designs out there. Now, spoiler alert, I personally prefer the King's Wild standard deck, so every single deck that I'm going to cover today comes with the King's Wild standard subscription. I'm not going to be going over the gilded ones or the special editions of any of them. All that and more coming up, but before we get started, please do drop a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And without further ado, let's roll that intro and get you guys on your way.
Let's go.
Now, if you're not familiar with the King's Wild Project, basically Jackson Robinson, the designer, they have worked out this amazing collector's subscription package. Ultimately, they design really cool decks, cool merch, very successful company in the card community, and they appeal to collectors, magicians, cardists, kind of everybody, and I think that has a lot to do with why they're so popular. So, Jackson Robinson, if you're watching this, I really hope you enjoy it. Alright, so coming in at number 5, we have the King's Wild Project Back to School playing cards. I really like this deck. It looks like a box of crayons, so this is actually the front, unless this is the front and the tuck just opens backwards, but looks like a box of crayons. I really dig that. The cards inside are super cool. I honestly just love the creativity that goes into this. Everything from like the court cards, the jokers, the faces. You can tell that Jackson really puts a lot of thought into keeping these cards fully custom, but still really nice and recognizable. I really love the theme, and there's a definite theme with this deck. The back design looks like crayons, as you can see. Again, just very, very smart the way that the faces were drawn. This is just one of those decks that, you know, you pick it up, it's fun, it's kind of novelty, but because of the quality of the paper stock and the matte tuck box, it feels so premium. Definitely not a gimmicky deck. It's very well done. As well, these cards are printed by the USPCC, so of course they're going to feel and handle really good. That is part of the appeal. King's Wild Project decks always feel extremely good. Especially for me, the standard ones that don't have gilding or foil on them, because, you know, I'm using these cards just to be shuffling and doing magic tricks, so I really do like the more minimalistic stuff, and that to me is why this is in my number 5. Okay, coming in at number 4 is the King's Wild Project Tally-Ho playing cards. These are the blue ones. If you guys know me, you know I love Tally-Ho as it is. Just the circle backs, the traditional circle backs are one of my favorite decks, hands down, and this takes the original Tally-Ho circle backs and puts the King's Wild Project treatment into it, which I think really came out nice. The tuck box is also extremely premium. It is done with a matte finish, so it looks and feels very nice, very elegant. I really love the shade of orange that was used on the tuck box and how it contrasts with that navy blue. I think little details like that are so important to set this deck apart from a regular deck of Tally-Hos. And to be honest, the white matte with the orange, it just looks so incredible, looks so good. These cards also don't disappoint on the back design. You can see it definitely has elements of the traditional Tally-Ho circle back, which is a good thing because it's everything you love about such a classic deck. But you also do get some subtle things that are a little bit different, again, to make this deck feel a little bit more premium and a little bit more elegant. And to be honest, it really paid off and it looks great. It just looks like if you were to level up, like if Tally-Hos were like the standard at the beginning of a video game and then you level up, your new uniform would look like that, if that makes any sense. You also do get your classic Jackson Robinson King's Wild court cards. That is also very, very cool. Jackson Robinson does some of the best court work I've ever seen. He's got his signature kind of custom faces. They don't have borders on them. They just look so good. Oh my god, and those inks with those kind of like dark scarlet colors. Handling wise, these are also really nice. They're not as nice to me as the back to school ones, but they do feel really good. They're still printed on premium paper stock by USPCC, but every print run for every deck is going to be different. I really like the way these feel, but they are a little bit more stiff and they take longer to break in than the aforementioned King's Wild back to school deck. Still an awesome deck, definitely one that I am stoked on having. Alright, now if you thought that the Jackson Robinson take on the Tally Hos was awesome, you should see the Jackson Robinson take on the bicycles. So coming in at number 3 are the Kings Wild Project Bicycle Scarlet Edition playing cards. Man, this deck is nothing like Bicycle, so it is not a take on the traditional rider back. If anything, this also has a lot of Tally Ho elements to it as well. Now, Jackson Robinson has done a lot of different Tally Ho renditions and a lot of different Bicycle renditions. Then the Bicycle Scarlet Edition came out and absolutely blew it out of the water. Just like you get with every Kings Wild deck, this comes in a beautifully smooth, matte, embossed tuck box. It's done in white, gold, and scarlet inks. It just looks so good. It's so incredibly elegant. It does pay an homage to Bicycle with that traditional Bicycle logo on the front, and this, again, this just looks like something that you don't pick up at Walgreens. This looks like something that you get at a very, very upscale, boutique for playing cards or magic shop. These cards feature amazing, amazing artwork by Jackson Robinson. You can see that there is metallic maroon and gold inks that make up that back design. Look at that. Ooh. It just looks so clean. Now, I am a huge fan of decks that kind of have that circle in the center, orbits, Tally Hos, things like that. I just think it looks really good. I love the colors, especially like this time of year around Christmas time. The red, the deep red, and the gold just looks so good. These cards also do have those Jackson Robinson Kings Wild style quartz. A crazy amount of detail into each one, featuring mostly gold inks and maroon. I mean, for God's sakes, would you look at that? Whew. I also really love the play on traditional Bicycle Jokers. Now we did this like with the Slow Hands deck. It is fairly common, but it looks so good. I like that they're both done in very dark black and white. It's a nice kind of mix up from all the rich gold and maroon throughout the deck. Definitely worthy of being number 3 on my list. Whew. God, I love this deck. Number 2, what else could it be besides the Kings Wild Project Cavett table players? Most of you know this about me, but I really do love kind of these vintage style, casino gambling style decks. I think there's a lot out there. It's a very common design type, but when you take something that is casino-esque and kind of evolve it into being this, I mean, it's just... I'll roll some B-roll so you guys can see the cards and see what I mean, but again, you get your amazing matte tuck box. This one is done in gold and yellow. It also has some red foiling, which looks really good, catches light very well. It's just an elegant deck. This looks like almost like an old vintage like pack of cigarettes that your grandpa would have. The cards themselves do have this casino style aesthetic. It is kind of a mirrored back design. It's very minimal. However, it looks so good. Again, it just kind of has this like old vintage cigarette label or like beer label. I love the specific shade of yellow that they use. It's kind of a gradient. It starts very mustardy yellow and then just gets lighter with these white streaks kind of as you go down. It's obviously very minimal, but I think it's minimal done extremely well. It's very well designed. It's very well thought out. You can tell that Jackson definitely did not just slap a logo onto a card back. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I definitely don't think there is. I love cards like that, but I think, for Kings Wild Project, if you're expecting a higher standard, even for minimalism, that is why this is number 2 on my list. As well, something that I love about this specific deck of table players is that it handles great. Again, you only have so much control over the way your cards are going to come out. This deck is printed on premium paper stock by the USPCC. Obviously one of the best card stocks out there. It's probably my favorite, and in this case specifically, this is exactly why. This deck feels so good. It's soft, but it's nice and thick. I've been shuffling it for ages and it still feels super good. Alright, but you guys want to know what my actual number 1, my favorite deck of cards by Kings Wild Project is. And that is the Table Players Volume 5. Now for me, it starts with the color of the box. I mean, when I saw the color of this box, I was swooned. I had to go pick it up. I love this color. Again, you get the matte tuck box. This one is extremely minimal. It just says number 13. It just kind of checkered every which way throughout the tuck box. It's very consistent with the back design. I love this tuck box. It's super minimal, but again, it's very classy. It's embossed, it's matte. It just looks so clean and so good. The tuck box. And I'm not even a tuck box guy. Usually I don't even care about that kind of thing, but this one, I love it. I love it. Also really love the back design of this deck. It looks so good. It's again very minimal and very casino-esque, but it says the number 13, kind of creating this weaved sideways checkered pattern throughout the back. all metallic inks. So it's like a metallic purple and a metallic teal and a metallic orange that make up that back design. So it's hard to see what's going on. It almost looks muddy on camera. I'll get up close, hopefully you guys can see it. But again, it follows kind of that same thing that I love about the Cavett table players, which is that it's minimal, but it's minimal with so much more effort put into it. And it just came out so good. It's a win. Now, one of my absolute favorite things about this deck, in fact, probably one of the key reasons why it's my favorite King's Wild deck, is the faces of the cards. You get those King's Wild style clubs, you get those, you know, kind of slender spades and hearts, and they look really good, kind of hand-drawn style, but I love that the hearts and diamonds are done in metallic purple. It looks so good. It's definitely a nice sharp color. Not something that you always see on the King's Wild Project decks. I mean, a lot of times they're, you know, very rich colors and darker tones, but the bright purple looks so good. I really think it came out nice, especially on the court cards. The court cards look amazing. Check them out. Look at this. Like, I mean, these are beautiful. They look so good. I love that purple. I love the colors. They're so bright and vibrant. It's a very rich feeling deck, but the vibrance of the faces is just a huge selling point for me, and it looks so good. But the other thing that I really love about this deck is specifically the way that it handles. This deck is on premium paper stock as well, but I believe this one specifically is crushed premium paper stock. It feels a little bit thinner, definitely feels softer. I really, really like the way that these cards feel. One more, for good measure. Ooh. Alright guys, so that was it. We had the Table Players Volume 5 as my number 1, the Cavett Table Players in number 2, the Bicycle Scarlet Edition. I love this deck in number 3. And number 4 was the King's Wild Project Tally Hose, and then we had the King's Wild Project Back to School deck as my number 5. I'm satisfied. I hope you guys are too. Well guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode and my top 5 favorite decks of cards by Jackson Robinson and the King's Wild Project. I have said this in the past before, there's just so many good decks from King's Wild Project, and it is hard to make a top 5 when the catalog is so wide, and especially when King's Wild Project has a lot of decks that are catered to collectors, and there's a lot of more elaborate features that King's Wild Project has done. These are just the ones that I pick up because I love them and because they're my favorite. As always though, I want to know what you guys think, so leave me a comment, let me know what your favorite decks by King's Wild Project are. As well guys, don't forget to drop a like on this video, and I hope you'll consider subscribing for more awesome videos just like this. And of course guys, my final question is, what other top 5s would you like to see on the channel? Leave me a comment and let me know, maybe I'll do it. Alright guys, thanks again so much for watching this video. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I know I will. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.